What's up, guys? Welcome to Daily Dose of Reddit. This is your host, Zach, and today's subreddit is r/stories of fat people. Fat people stories. I messed up, but that's funny. Alright, this story's called Cousin Carney Part 3. Carney works 2 jobs, you know. After Carney and I both moved on from working at that hotel, we stayed in touch. I had grown to hate her as a coworker, but now that we didn't have to work together, I thought maybe we'd get along better, and I'd have fewer reasons to be annoyed by her. We're related and all that. I was still hopeful at that point that we'd be friends. And now we weren't working opposite shifts, we could actually see each other outside of work. How bad could it be? When we left off, I'd mentioned I'd never had a meal with Carney, and this is true. This is because I tend to eat home-cooked meals, and Carney ate almost exclusively fast food. Worse, she apparently ate most of her meals in her car. I always joke to my husband that she never saw a fast food drive-thru she wouldn't break for, as evidenced by the sea of fast food wrappers all over her car. The passenger side floor would be 2 feet deep with garbage and more in the back seat. The couple of times I found myself in her car, I had to shovel garbage into the back seat just so I could sit down, as I have this weird rule about not wanting to sit in a garbage heap. Even people who aren't concerned about keeping their car tidy would probably have found this somewhat troubling. What has to be wrong with you to do this? How incredibly lazy do you have to be to just let fast food wrappers pile up like that? Just throw the garbage back into the bag it came in and throw it out when you get to your destination. Or at least do this every few days. What the hell, Carney? And while I know many people, maybe even most people, now eat almost exclusively fast food or takeout, I never understood why these two, who had no money and were developing health issues due to their obesity, were spending all that money on fast food. Carney and Harry were chronically broke, which means they were always having some financial difficulty or another. Maybe if they didn't spend their entire paycheck at Taco Bell, but I digress. Not that many months after we'd left the hotel, her cable was shut off due to non-payment. She complained to me that she was missing her favorite shows, and since one of those shows was a show that I like to watch, I invited her over to watch it with me. This mistake quickly snowballed into her wanting me to record all her favorite shows. Thankfully, only about 4 shows a week. I was still on fairly friendly terms with her at this point, so I didn't mind. At least, not in the beginning. At this point, I was still thinking of this as a friendship and was being open-minded. You put up with the things about your friends that are a little weird because then they'll put up with your weird things. Or so you hope. This arrangement lasted for a few months until she started piggybacking on her mother's Netflix and Hulu accounts, and thankfully could watch TV at home, much to my relief. By this time, I had started a new job in my career field, and my work days were long. I worked an 8-hour day, Monday through Friday. When you add in the lunch hour on top of that, plus the 1-hour each way commute into the city, I was out of the house about 11 hours a day. It was also stressful primarily due to the company trying to scrimp on staff. So I'd often come home mentally exhausted for being yelled at about our backlog and thus less tolerant of putting up with someone else's bullcrap than I normally would. Carney, meanwhile, had a job as a retail cashier. She got maybe 20 or 25 hours a week there. I know this because she complained about the lack of hours often, yet she'd also complain if they scheduled her for too many hours during the holiday season. Usually she worked only a 4 or 6 hour shift. Apparently, if they work more than 7 hours, they have to be given a lunch break. So the company was careful never to give them longer shifts. I think she was getting like maybe 3 or 4 days a week, maybe 18 to 24 hours a week, at a job that was maybe a 5 or 10 minute commute from her house. She'd also picked up a second job, a 1 shift a week job at some no-tell motel around the corner from her house. She was so close she could walk to work. I mean, she didn't, but she could have. Between the two jobs, she may have worked 28 hours a week on average, working 4 days a week, sometimes 5, and had a short commute. My point is, it's not wrong to say her life was a little less busy and complicated than mine. Carney quickly learned what time I'd be home from work most evenings, so on the day she wanted to watch her shows, she'd pop in 10 minutes after I walked in the door. Sometimes she'd even be there before I got home. This was somewhat annoying, but I wasn't gonna let it get to me since it was only about once a week, occasionally twice. The way I figured, if she got there early, she would go home earlier and let me have some time to wind down before bed, which was more important to me, so I didn't make a fuss. I'd get in the door from that 11-hour day, put my stuff down, go to the bathroom, and then I'd usually head to the kitchen to start cooking dinner. Carney would show up, having already snarfed down her fast food on the ride over, would come into the kitchen, sit at the table, and watch me cook and complain about her day until she was ready to go watch TV. One evening, some version of this conversation took place when I was crankier than usual and not wanting to put up with a 40-year-old who felt I was acting like a teenager. I already had one of those to deal with, and I didn't need another.
I don't like vegetables.
What do you mean? Which ones?
Any of them. They are yucky.
What are you, 12?
No, I just don't like vegetables. Not everyone has to like the same thing, you know.
There is such a wide variety of vegetables. How can you not like any of them?
They are icky. I don't like them.
Except French fries.
Yeah, except French fries. And mashed potatoes.
And ketchup.
Yeah, and ketchup.
I still can't understand refusing to eat any and all vegetables. But I'm a glass half full kind of gal. If she'd like vegetables, she might have wanted to eat dinner at my house those nights. So it was really a blessing in disguise that I didn't have to feed her. The gods were smiling down upon me. Spoken like a storm cloak, I see. However, then there was this argument, which pushed me over the edge from mildly annoyed to kinda ticked off. Now she really was acting like a teenager.
Anyway, I wouldn't even have time to cook.
Excuse me?
Well, I work 2 jobs, you know. When would I have time to cook?
You certainly have time to sit here in my kitchen watching me cook, don't you?
Well, yeah, but that's different. I was starving when I got off from work and I had to eat, and I had to walk my dogs when I got home. I was too hungry to have to take the time to cook.
You think I wasn't hungry when I got off from work before my 1-hour commute home? But I didn't hit the drive-thru window.
Oh.
You realize I am working full-time, don't you? Yet I still find time to cook breakfast, pack a lunch, and cook dinner. So I don't know what you're talking about.
I work 2 jobs.
You work 25, 30 hours a week and you have no commute, Carney. Between my job and my commute, that's 55 hours a week, about double what you work. But somehow I still find time to cook.
Well, when would I have time to go to the grocery store?
When do you think I find time to go to the grocery store? I go on my day off. You could go on your day off. Don't play dumb. If you don't want to cook, then don't. But don't you sit here in my kitchen saying you work so much harder and you don't have time to cook. Unlike people like me who you seem to think have oodles more free time than you do. That's really rude. She shut up and slunk off to watch her show after that. And because I'm a special brand of crazy, I felt bad that I'd been too hard on her. She wasn't really being snotty to me when she said it, but she's so self-centered, she had no perspective for anyone else, or realized she wasn't as big a victim as she liked to pretend she was. The truth is, she's incredibly lazy, and if she just admitted it, shown she had some self-awareness, I'd have just laughed it off with her. But she wouldn't admit it and tried to make excuses, and it hit my nerves. Still, I tried to sympathize with her and make amends. I learned she owned a crock pot, so I thought, great. Tried giving her crock pot recipes. These could cook while she worked, and she didn't have to have a lot of cooking skill, and they'd be ready when she got home. That would work, right? Maybe save her money and time, and call me crazy. Maybe give her a feeling of accomplishment and maturity. I also tried giving her my panini maker. You can make hot sandwiches in minutes with it, and again, no cooking skill needed. Both appliances clean up pretty quickly too, so it's not like a huge mess of dishes like I usually end up with after cooking. You'll be shocked to hear this, but she wasn't the least bit interested in my help or advice. She didn't take the panini maker, and I doubt she ever made any of the crockpot recipes. She preferred having a pocket full of excuses not to cook. Fine, that's allowed, but I didn't want to listen to her damn excuses anymore. I didn't want to listen to her money woes anymore either. If she could afford fast food for every meal. I once tried to figure out how much it would cost my husband and I to eat fast food for the whole month, and I rather imagine we'd have eaten less per meal than they would, and it blew our monthly food budget out of the water. Even a conservative estimate of $5 per meal per person adds up to a lot of money, something I could never have afforded in my budget, even with my husband and I having good jobs and living a middle-class lifestyle. On another occasion, we had another argument over the cost of foods. Her husband was having health issues, and the doctor said no more greasy fast food. She whined that he wouldn't give it up, but then when I suggested healthier food she could cook, she fell back on the typical fat logic excuses.
When would I even find time to grocery shop?
Astounded at her stupidity. You literally work at a grocery store! The first retail chain she worked at sold some grocery items. The one she later worked at had a full grocery section.
Anyway, I am too tired when I get home from work to cook.
Then use the crock pot and set it up before you leave for work. The food is ready when you get home.
Well, I'd never remember to have all the ingredients.
That's why you make a list before you go to the store.
I don't even know what I want to eat until I'm hungry. I can't plan meals in advance if I don't know what I want to eat.
Then bring home the groceries for whatever you feel like eating that day home from your shift.
I don't want to spend any more time at work than I have to. When I get done with work, I want to be gone.
Then maybe you should work at a fast food place so you won't want to eat that crap anymore either. How did she always manage to sound like a whiny teenager? She was in her 40s for Pete's sake, but you wouldn't know it to talk to her.
But healthy food is expensive.
Oh, don't give me that crap. Junk food might be cheaper per serving, but you end up eating way more of it, so it really ends up more expensive. When you buy junk food, generally you end up eating twice as much of it, which means you're spending the same amount or more than if you just bought the healthy foods.
No, it's still more expensive. I wouldn't eat less of the healthy food. I really like to eat.
Maybe you need a new hobby. Just grow up already. Admittedly, some of this might be a slight exaggeration. It's been a few years, and I don't suppose I remember the conversations exactly, but this is close to how some of our conversations went. With Carney, you don't need to exaggerate. She really was comically stupid and annoying. Strangely, even though on several occasions I'd get complainy with her when she started to whine too much, she'd never stay mad at me. She always turned back up a week or two later. She'd glommed on to me like I was the only person willing to put up with her, and she thought I was her best friend. For a while, I had this naive idea that maybe she just needed some guidance or advice and wisdom to help fix some of her problems. Maybe no one had taught her better. Maybe she'd never had a good example in her life. After a while, I started to realize she knew better. She was just determined to stick to her guns and do things her way, the lazy way, no matter what. And I started to hate her. But in the meantime, I kept giving her more chances, thinking I shouldn't be so hard on her. She was, after all, not too bright, and seemed like a lost teenager who just needed a mother figure. So the story continues. Yet another great Cousin Carney story. And yes, fast food does add up, but budgeting is boring, so who needs that, right? Financial irresponsibility, here we go! Alright, this story's called Little Sis Finally Used Her Obesity for Good. I haven't posted about my now officially 618-pound little sister in a while. I regret to inform you that y'all were right. She didn't stick to her healthier lifestyle accommodations at all. But there's a little good that came out of her obesity that I'd like to share. Like I said before, my sis is a SSBBW feederism fetish model. Oh goodness. And yesterday she did a fundraising stream in which she pledged to eat one chicken nugget for every $5 donated to the BLM fund. I even joined it too, but I'm only 105 pounds, so I could only commit to one nugget for every $30. By the end of the stream, she ate exactly 187 chicken nuggies, and I had 31, and we raised almost $1,000 for the fund. I'd still rather see her move away from eating 11,000 calories in one sitting, but you know what? If she's using her power for good, I can let it slide. And to be honest, I don't even know how she does it. After I ate 25, I was ready to pass out. Oh no, my freaking butt, it fell off. Woohoo! Regardless, I'm so glad she decided to do this, and I'm super proud of her. If anyone is wondering, she's 23 and I'm 30. And if you'd like, I could post regularly about the funny, interesting fat girl situations she finds herself in. Yes, please post. And wow, feederism fetish model. That is interesting. I was aware that it existed, but that is definitely a thing I do not understand. But hey, to each their own. To each their own. Actually, to eat their own. Because feederism. Anyway, that's a really cool story. Good on her for raising a considerable amount of money for a good cause. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode.